Welcome to the real world. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on this very special video where we're talking all about Superman and specifically James Gunn's inspirations for his new Superman movie. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. We're huge movie fans, and obviously I'm a huge Superman fan. I've seen all the movies, the series. I've got some of the comics down here in front of me. We're going to be talking all about the history of this character in this video, specifically about the images James Gunn posted on Instagram that are inspiring his new Superman film. Alright, so we're going to get started with the very first image James Gunn posted to his Instagram account. That is from, of course, Superman #1, the very first issue of the very first Superman comic. Now, not the first appearance of Superman, which was in Action Comics #1. No, this is the first issue of his own title series, Superman. Superman #1 debuted in 1939, a year after Action Comics #1 debuted in 1938. It was also written by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who are the creators of Superman. So obviously he's going way back to the beginning of the character, which I think is obviously a great idea. So that's very cool. Not much in that story that I think is going to play into the story of the film, but I guess anything's possible. Moving right along to a comic book that inspired him. I've actually got the comic book right here, and James Gunn has mentioned this many times. It's All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman is an excellent comic, one of my favorites of the character's entire history. Not only has James Gunn mentioned this, Nicholas Hoult mentioned this in a recent interview he did with Michael Rosenbaum, Smallville's Lex Luthor, on his Inside of You podcast, which you can check out wherever you get your podcasts. Holt specifically mentioned Lex Luthor in this series, and so I think that's very fascinating. So this is definitely a major inspiration for him if he's having his cast read it. So I'd highly recommend either picking up this 2-volume set that I have, or they have them together in 1 volume. Definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't already. Again, it's well worth reading. One of the best Superman stories I think ever written. You can also check out this excellent animated version called All-Star Superman, released by Warner Brothers Animation. If you don't want to read the comic, it's of course a condensed version of the comic, but it's a very well done film. Next, he mentioned 1941's Superman cartoon by Max Fleischer. Now that's included on this Blu-ray box set I have of the original Richard Donner Superman film starring Christopher Reeve. They released a recent standalone Blu-ray release, so you can get these on Blu-ray. So you have them on physical media. They're well worth checking out. They're some of my favorite cartoons ever made, specifically from the era of the 1940s. They're fantastic. So I would definitely recommend checking those out. Again, I don't know exactly how those are going to inspire this film, whether it's just the general aesthetic. Is this going to be a period piece? I highly doubt that, but it would be kind of cool if it all was set maybe in like the 40s or the 50s. So, but regardless, those are, again, well worth seeking out and checking out if you're a Superman fan or just a fan of animation. Then we have a comic book by Alan Moore titled Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. This is another one of my favorite Superman stories. It's so well done. Alan Moore is a fantastic writer, and he just really told one of the best Superman stories here. It's very unique, and it's rather short. You can tell it's not a super lengthy storyline, but it's, again, well worth seeking out. You can pick this up on Amazon or wherever you get your comic books. If you have a local comic book shop, I highly recommend supporting them. But this is definitely one that's going to show a different side. It's showing much more of the human side of Superman, his vulnerability, just as a person. And so I think that's kind of the element of it that he's going to be drawing on. Of course, he encounters many other characters here. You can see on the cover, the Justice League is kind of featured there. So, I think that's definitely going to play into this. A Superman that's already there with other superheroes. I think that's maybe a big part of it. The next thing that he mentioned, the next image that he showed was from Superman Annual number 6. Now, this is a comic I have not read. It's from 1962, and the image was featured the Superman family. And of course, we know he's already cast Supergirl. She could make an appearance here. We've got in this image Bizarro. We've got Jor and Laura L. We've got the Legion of Superheroes, Mr. Mixie Spitlick, Comet the Super Horse, Streaky the Super Cat, Crypto the Super Dog, Beppo the Super Monkey down there in the corner, Jonathan and Martha Kent, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, Lana Lang, Cat Grant, I think, is pictured there as well. And of course, Superman and Supergirl are front and center. So this is obviously an image that covers a lot of the Superman history and the characters that are kind of closest to Superman and his story. So I don't know exactly which ones we'll see. We know we're seeing Jimmy, Perry, Lois. We've got no casting announcements for Jonathan and Martha Kent or Jor and Laura L. But again, we do know that Supergirl is in the movie. I wouldn't be surprised if at least Crypto showed up because James Gunn is a big dog lover. So we'll have to look out for that. Next up, Action Comics Volume 2, Number 4 from 2011, also written by Grant Morrison. This is one of the more recent comics from the New 52 line. A younger Superman just wearing a t-shirt and jeans as he's fighting crime. Just starting off, it would be kind of cool to see something like that in this movie, kind of a prototype suit before he gets his final costume. Then we have Kingdom Come, 1996 by Mark Waid. This is one of the most popular DC stories of all time, one of the greatest. I have to agree. It's one of my favorites. It features a much older Superman, so I don't think they're going to be drawing on Superman's story arc in that one, but perhaps the things around it. Again, there's a lot of superheroes in that. It's a big, sprawling DC story. And from what we've seen of the suit, the S symbol looks very similar to that costume he has in that. Next up, Superman the Animated Series, one of my favorite animated series of all time. Grew up watching this. Still is one of my favorites. I've got it on Blu-ray. Watched it many, many, many times over the years. And so I'm very glad he's drawing inspiration from that whole universe that Bruce Timm helped create with Alan Burnett and Paul Dini and all those guys over there. Very exciting stuff. Next up, Jeff Loeb's Superman for All Seasons. This actually is my number one favorite Superman story of all time. I am so glad he mentioned this. It's a great story. Again, shows the human side of Clark Kent and, kind of who he is. It's a really, really well-told story. Jeff Loeb is one of my favorite writers. Tim Sale, the artist, is fantastic as well. So I would highly recommend checking that out. Then Action Comics number 1035 from 2021 is the final image he revealed with Superman and Lois flying, the moon behind them, embracing, giving one another a big kiss. And I think that's a really interesting image. The storyline I was digging into a little bit does feature the Authority. And we already know one member of the Authority is going to be in the film, the Engineer. So very curious to see how that storyline is going to connect, if he's maybe loosely adapting that storyline in some way, or if it's just his own new version of that. So very exciting stuff. I really like all of these images. I'm so glad he's looking back at the history, as anyone who does any Superman film should, look back at the history of the character. He's been around for 80 years. So it's one of those things that has a lot of baggage that comes with it. It's obviously a highly anticipated film, kicking off this new DC universe in film. So I'm very excited. I'm really interested to see what he's going to do with it. I want to know what your thoughts are. We also know that Tom King, the writer of Superman Up in the Sky, one of the best, most recent Superman stories, is going to be consulting on this film. It was said that he got to take a look at the script and give some notes on it, which I think is great. Again, I think when great comic book artists and storytellers are brought in to the film side to help bring these characters to life, that can only help. And I think James Gunn is an intelligent filmmaker. He's done great with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. His Suicide Squad movie, I think, was fantastic. So very excited about what this is going to be. Even though I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan and really loved what he did with his universe, this is all signs that are pointing in the right direction, that are getting me very excited about the movie, which is set to debut next summer. So July of next year, we will finally get this new Superman movie. But until then, again, they just started shooting, so it's going to be a while before we actually see it on the big screen. But let me know what your thoughts are on all of these things in the comments below. What are your expectations? What are your theories? I want to hear all of it down there. Again, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos, and we'll see you next time right here on The Real World.